Hello and welcome to our next module. We'll be discussing elections and the Electoral College. Okay, when it came to the Constitution, the framers pretty much left elections up to the individual states. If you just think back for a second, when it came to the Constitutional Convention, just because of spring rains, it was hard for them to get all the delegates there on time. So when it came to elections, national elections in particular, that they wanted to simplify the administration of it, and that just makes sense. And so that's why even to this day, in fact, if those of you are old enough to remember the election of 2000, that's why we had haying chads in Florida and nowhere else, right? But what the framers had put together was the Electoral College, all right? And then there's been a lot of debate recently about the Electoral College, and I remember even over the years, even when I was an undergraduate student, there was talk about the Electoral College, whether or not it was uh, an antiquated mechanism or whatever. Uh, as a side note, we'll talk about this in a subsequent module, but talk about a little bit here. At some point, I don't think it's going to go away anytime soon. But we'll talk about that here later. But when it came to electoral college, what the electoral college really boils down to is this: each state has a number of electors in a presidential election. And so basically you add the number of members of the House and the Senate, boom, there's your number. All right. So even the smallest populated state would have three: one member in the House, two from the Senate, whereas California is currently the largest in population, which would have the most electoral votes. And for the most part, pretty much all states are winner take all, except for a couple, and they do it by proportion. So that way, if the top vote getter gets 60% and the second person gets 40%, just keeping simple math here, then 60% of the votes would go to the winner and 40% to that runner up. Now, again, this whole mechanism of electoral college was to avoid an administrative issue of a national election. But at the time, it was considered to be a mechanism of a safety net of sorts. Okay? Now you have to remember the context of the times. Late 1780s, most people didn't read. As I always joke around, the internet of the day was the tavern. And so a lot of people didn't really know, you know, they weren't in the know as far as what was really going on in politics, who was qualified, who wasn't. Okay? Again, that was one of the original intentions. But, I will tell you what was told to me when I was sitting in your chair some odd years ago. It still works today, but for different reasons. Okay? So I always like to ask people, just as an academic exercise, well, if you were running for president and they did away with the electoral college, now just keep in mind nothing in life is perfect. They just did away with the electoral college, where would you campaign? And invariably I get answers like New York, California, and especially California. I say, well, maybe where? And I just kind of pull it out of the class, and I say, well, hey, Chico, California, look it up on the map. I used to work with someone who was from there. That's actually where Aaron Rodgers is from, for those of you who are football fans. But very tiny, out in the middle of nowhere, Northern California. Well, anyway, you don't want to campaign there. You want to campaign in LA, San Francisco. So what it would do, if you went, especially now, the way society is structured, where most you have these large concentrations of population, New York City, Dallas, Atlanta, Miami, that's where you're going to go. And the way the system is currently set up, it does force candidates to go to some areas that they normally wouldn't go to. So you're still going to see candidates that will go to Columbia, South Carolina, or Little Rock, Arkansas, or Columbus, Ohio. Whereas if you went straight up popular vote, it wouldn't happen. Now, back in the 1800s up through really the mass industrialization of the United States, most of the population was in rural areas. Now, I will tell you that yes, there are some things we know for certain, that California in the next election is going to go Democrat. South Carolina will go Republican. But this still does force a presidential candidate to really not, what amounts to, ignore certain areas of the population. All right. So with that, that's the end of this short module, and we will pick it up with the next one. Thank you.